Welcome and thank you for joining us for this Year 7 Achievement event. My name's Jo Mora, I'm Assistant Head Teacher in charge of Achievement, and I'll be talking to you a little bit about assessment and reporting in Year 7. Mr Crossley, who's the Deputy Head in charge of Teaching and Learning, will talk to you a little bit about memory and recall, and then we'll just touch on the wider opportunities available to students here at the Carlton Academy. 2020 has been a real year of challenges for schools across the country, and I should say across the globe. And for the very first time, we've got Year 7s joining us who haven't sat their SATs exams at their primary schools. So students have been doing lots of work in lessons that the teachers have been keeping a close eye on. We've also got an indication from primary schools as to what your child would have achieved had they done their exams in the summer. And students have undertaken as well some tests that we call CATs. Those are cognitive and reasoning tests that are a nationwide test that compares them to a database, a national database of students of their age. And all of those things together have given us a real clear picture of where your student is at. Next half term, your child will receive a target band in each of their subject areas. We arrive at these bands based on a triangulation of all the things that I have just talked about to work out what your child is likely to achieve at the end of Year 11, and those bands are mapped out to GCSE grades at the end of Key Stage 4. All subject areas work with banding descriptors. So for example, in Year 7 Spanish, a child who is on course to get an A will have different skills that they will be achieving across the skills in Spanish, which are listening, speaking, reading and writing. Now at the beginning of Year 7, you might achieve a grade A because you might be able to pick out familiar language within passages, but that passage will be quite short at the beginning of Year 7. As they move through Year 7 and they increase their vocabulary and the amount of work that they have done in order to achieve a band A at the end of Year 7, they will be picking up familiar language within much longer passages. So if you are on a band A, you have to continue to progress in order to keep that band A. Here is an example of the first couple of weeks' work in Year 7, where we're working through some basic conversations in Spanish. And this is an example of a student who's really worked hard on their writing skills. They've used everything that they've been taught, but also they've added in some additional detail, and on the whole, it's very accurate. And therefore, right at the beginning of Year 7, this work has achieved a band A grade. At the end of Year 7, this is the same student, they will have had to produce a piece of work more like this because there's a lot more that they have learnt and taken on since the beginning of Year 7. So in order to achieve that band A, they've had to write an awful lot more than they did at the beginning of Year 7. Twice a year, you'll receive a report home for your child, and that will explain how your child is doing towards their target bands. Where your child is achieving beyond what they are targeted to achieve, that will be highlighted in blue. Where students are on target, it will be green, and if they're working below target, that will be highlighted in yellow. Here is an example of a report. This is the second report in Year 7. As you can see that the first data collection point, which is in December, has happened, and the second data collection point, which is in the summer, has also happened. This child has their target bands, as you can see in the red circle at the beginning of the report. In the first half of the year, they were on target to reach all of those grades. And then towards the end of the year, that child has now exceeded their target grade in 2 of their subjects. Even if your child is on target or above target, it's possible that we will set them a target for their continued improvement. So for example, in history, this child is on target to reach their band C. However, the teacher feels that with a bit more participation in class, they could go even further and achieve above a C, and that's been highlighted also in science. Where a student is below target, the teacher must set a target for improvement. The report also contains additional information about attendance, behaviour points, achievement points, if there's been any lates and if there's been any detentions, as well as positive information about the pledges and how far we are towards achieving those pledges. But none of this should come as a surprise because you should have had regular contact from the school via text, through the app and also through the tutor throughout the year.
At the Carlton Academy, we ask all of our teachers to use certain strategies and techniques in the classroom. These are based on current research in cognitive psychology and also what we know about our students. We use these techniques ubiquitously across the school because we know that if we do them well, they'll have the best impact in raising the achievement of our students. We call these strategies our shared strategies. We ask all of our teachers to share graded or banded learning outcomes in each lesson. This creates teacher clarity so that students understand where the learning is going and how it builds on prior learning. We ask them to share the most challenging objective first, and this frames the conversation around we're all aiming for this most challenging objective. We understand that not everyone will meet it every single time, but that's where we're all trying to get to. We ask them to use a Carlton Academy slide because that creates consistency across all lessons. This is something that we feel that we do really well. We ask all of our teachers to have a starter activity at the beginning of the lesson that recaps prior learning. In a lesson, students are taking information from the environment and processing it in their working memory. If they process it sufficiently, it will be transferred to their long-term memory, and that's what we call learning. But what we want our students to practice is retrieving that information from their long-term memory and bringing it back into the working memory. The reason that we need to activate this prior learning is it frees up space in the working memory. Working memory is quite small, and once it's full, it becomes very difficult to learn effectively. If we can help our students to practice retrieving memory from their long-term memory, that means they need to hold less in their working memory and their learning will be more effective. So we practice retrieval regularly at the start of lessons. The prefrontal lobe, the part of the brain that's responsible for remembering things, is actually developing more slowly in adolescence. So it's really important that we practice this and that we interleave it with past content from different topics to practice this retrieval with students. We ask all of our teachers to accompany the feedback that they give students with what we would call DIRT. DIRT stands for Directed Improvement and Reflection Time. We know that effective feedback has a substantial impact on progress of our students. It provides a regular review of learning. Different departments will implement this in different ways. We also ask all of our teachers to regularly undertake low-stakes quizzing. Low-stakes quizzing means quizzing students in a way in which the scores are not recorded by the teacher. This helps with building up schemata in the brain. New learning attaches to old learning through forming links. The more that our students know and the better their background learning, the more effective and fertile that ground is for attaching new learning to. The Matthew principle basically states that the more you know already, the easier it is to learn and the more knowledge you will gain. So low stakes quizzing allows us to work on students' background knowledge to ultimately serve them gaining more knowledge in the future. Again, it provides a regular review of learning that's vital for practicing retrieval skills. If we pitch it at the right level, students will feel successful, and we can build this culture of success where students recognise that doing their homework tasks and that learning fact recall and learning the background knowledge helps them to feel successful in lessons. And again, it helps us to practice retrieval with students and helping them to retrieve memory from their long-term memory. At the Carlton Academy, we have 4 cross-curricular key skills that we work on in every subject with students. The first of those is reading. All students have an accelerated reader lesson as part of their English provision, and all students in year 7, 8 and 9 will have DEAR time for 15 minutes each day on a rolling programme. DEAR stands for Drop Everything and Read, and during this time, students read a book of their choice for 15 minutes. The entire school reads during tutor time on one day of the week. Extended writing is a whole school development priority. We've been working on developing students' extended writing for a couple of years now with our teachers. Extended writing opportunities are written in schemes of work and curriculum for all subjects. Oracy, verbal communication, is something that we really value at the Carlton Academy. We work on students' oracy skills via a tutor time programme of activities and also by promoting quality talk in lessons. The 4th skill, memory and retrieval, is serviced through homework. Students get 30 minutes homework of fact learning and practicing their retrieval each week, the learning of which is tested via quizzing in lessons. As a group of teachers, we decided on what aspects of quality talk we wanted to see from students at the Carlton Academy. This was whether they were in lessons, in the dining room, at break time, or walking the corridors. We branded this up as speak and display it in every classroom and regularly take opportunities to develop these characteristics with the students. We talk with our students about scientists and psychologists who have done work that inform the work that we do as teachers. The first of those is Hermann Ebbinghaus. Ebbinghaus showed us that when you learn something, you'll inevitably forget some of it. But if you revisit it, you will forget some of it again, but you won't forget as much the second time as you did the first. So the more that we revisit things, the less likely we are to forget it. Another psychologist that we talk to students about is Robert Bjork. Robert Bjork showed us that once you learn something, you never actually forget it. It's still in your long-term memory somewhere, but it becomes harder to access. The more we practice retrieving information, the easier it becomes to access. The example I always use with students is phone numbers. Nowadays, I don't know my friends' phone numbers because they're all just stored in my mobile phone, and when I want to ring them, just click on their name and it dials them automatically. But I can remember my friends' phone numbers from when I was 10 years old because I used to ring them regularly to organise games of football. And that regular practicing retrieving those phone numbers means that they're still ingrained in my long-term memory, and those retrieval pathways are still there, and I can still remember those today. When we learn something, it's like taking a walk across a field of long grass. It leaves an imprint, but it's only vague and it's difficult to find again. But the more that we practice walking along that path, the more that we practice retrieving that information, the easier it becomes to find the pathway in the future. This leads us to our homework strategy. In Year 7 and Year 8, we set 30-minute homework tasks for students, 30 minutes per week for English, Maths and Science, and 30 minutes per fortnight for every other subject. The tasks focus on fact retrieval and flipped learning, learning the subject knowledge that's required to be successful in those subjects for that half term. Flipped learning means learning the facts before coming to the lesson so that they can be applied in the lesson with the teacher. We produce a half-termly booklet that contains the information that students need to learn for each subject. The specifics of what each teacher and each subject want the student to do is set by a Show My Homework. Show My Homework is an application that's available through a company called Satchel 1. The learning for homeworks is checked in lessons through low-stakes quizzing. Our homework strategy has been very successful. It helps students to develop their memory and retrieval skills. It also frees up time in lessons that can be used for more creative activities. The tasks are meaningful and students can directly relate how completing their homework will contribute to their success. The homework booklet itself means that there are no loose sheets for each individual subject and homework is always kept in one place. The homework tasks are predictable and consistent, and students know exactly what they need to do in each subject.
Although this year what we're able to offer as a wider opportunities programme is reduced due to obvious reasons, we're very proud that we're still able to put on a full suite of sporting activities and events for Year 7s after school. Please talk to your child about it and get them involved in as many things as they possibly can, whilst they have a great chance to do so here at the Carlton Academy. Thank you very much indeed for attending and for listening in to Dave and I. Please don't hesitate to contact either of us or your child's tutor if there's anything about their achievement or their teaching, learning journey that you would like to talk through with us. Thanks very much. Good evening.